It was supposed to be just another quiet morning, nothing more than a quick errand at Clarence's house. Princess Catherine had done this sort of thing a dozen times before, some archive letters here, a few charity artifacts there, but that Tuesday morning in April 2025, that morning shattered something not with noise or confrontation, but with silence and silk and sapphire. She wasn't even meant to be in that room. One of the aides had simply misread the schedule and led her toward Queen Camilla's old private quarters instead of the main archive. Most would have politely turned around, but Catherine, calm and composed as always, paused. The door was slightly ajar. Curiosity tugged. She stepped inside. It didn't look like much. Dim lighting, heavy curtains, antique furniture, and thus that hinted no one had walked through in years. But then she saw it, a drawer wrapped in deep red velvet and etched with a single gold word, private. It wasn't locked inside, it was something she didn't expect. Not forgotten letters, not royal bric-a-brac, but jewelry, familiar jewelry. At first she thought they were replicas, maybe practice pieces for museum exhibits, but the more she looked, the faster her heartbeat got. These weren't fakes. They were real, unmistakably real, lying there in velvet, untouched for decades, where Princess Diana Sapphire drop earrings. Catherine's breath caught every photo she had seen of Diana wearing those earrings came crashing to the front of her mind. She picked them up. They were heavier than she imagined, colder too, as if they still held the chill of the years. They'd been hidden away. She kept searching, and that's when the gold locket appeared. It was old, slightly tarnished, but when she opened it, the sight nearly dropped her to the floor. Two tiny photos, William and Harry as boys, the exact locket Diana used to wear everywhere, especially when she traveled. Catherine had never seen it in real life. William had never even mentioned it. Then came the diamond brooch, the tiara wrapped in tissue, the charm bracelet engraved with WW for William Arthur. It was a time capsule of Diana's soul sealed off from her family. For nearly 3 decades, none of these pieces had been passed on to William or Harry, not a single one. She didn't cry right away, she just stood still for what felt like a lifetime. A royal staffer would later say she didn't move for nearly 10 minutes. Eyes locked on the earrings in her hands, and then just barely above a whisper, she asked, "Why weren't we told she wasn't angry?" Not yet. Just stunned, grieving for a woman she'd never truly met, but had always carried with her. She'd worn Diana's ring, honored her causes, echoed her grace, but this was personal, this was sacred. She took photos, documented every item carefully, deliberately, then locked the drawer again. The sound of the key clicking back into place felt like something final, something irreversible. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, she placed the locket and earrings on their sitting room table. William didn't need an explanation. He saw them, and everything stopped. He sat down without a word, picked up the locket, opened it, looked at the photos. He didn't speak. Catherine did. I found them in her drawer. In Camilla's private chest silence, then a single nod. William leaned back, closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, Catherine saw a side of him no one else had, the boy who'd lost his mother. What they didn't know yet was that this wasn't just a discovery, it was the beginning. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The silence around him was louder than any outburst could have been. Sitting in his study the next morning, surrounded by dusty royal inventories and folders from the Buckingham archives, he flipped through lists that were supposed to include every piece of jewelry passed down from Diana's estate, and yet there were gaping holes, missing descriptions, vague labels like unclassified brooch, and worst of all, entire. Entry skipped altogether. He wasn't just looking at a clerical error. This was intentional. These weren't misplaced keepsakes. These were deliberate omissions. He called in a trusted legal advisor quietly without alerting the palace machinery. The instructions were simple. Pull Diana's revised will from 1993, cross-check every item she intended to pass on, then compare it to what the royal collection officially listed. The gap was undeniable. Among the most glaring discrepancies, the sapphire earrings, the gold locket, the charm bracelet, all clearly mentioned in Diana's will, all meant for her sons and their future wives. None ever formally transferred, none ever accounted for, and yet Camilla had them not displayed, not worn, hidden. William's jaw clenched as he came across a 2007 insurance document that sealed it. The sapphire earrings were registered under Camilla's name that night. He sat across from Catherine. The report laid out between them. She registered them like they were hers. He said, voice low, fingers pressed tightly against his temples. Catherine didn't speak. She didn't need to. She understood what this meant. Camilla hadn't just held on to the jewelry, she had claimed it. The implications sank in slowly. For years, Diana's presence had been felt only in memories and public tributes, but this, it wasn't memory, it was possession, private, secretive, and most of all, selfish. The next morning, William requested a meeting. Sandra, you private, no press, no advisors, just him, Camilla, and King Charles. Amelia arrived as if she were walking into a routine family update, calm, composed, dressed in her usual pearls and gray. But the moment she saw the photos laid out on the table, each item photographed, time-stamped, logged, her face stiffened. I preserved them, she began. They were gathering dust. No one was paying attention. You insured them. William cut in. There was a beat of silence. Camilla's lips pursed, her voice dropping slightly. Charles told me I could store some of the heirlooms. He said, there's no record. William replied. Charles shifted uncomfortably, his eyes focused on the floor. Camilla's justifications began to sound thinner, more rehearsed. She talked about preserving royal legacy, about protecting fragile items from getting lost in bureaucratic mazes. But William wasn't listening anymore. He wasn't here to argue over protocol or misfiled paperwork. He was here for something else, something deeper. These were my mother's, he said, voice barely more than a whisper. She didn't lose them. You took them. The words landed like a brick. Camilla's face drained of color. Charles finally spoke, asking William and Camilla to remain while everyone else left the room. What was said behind that door remains a mystery, but when the doors reopened, Camilla walked out with tears in her eyes, and Charles canceled his next 4 public appearances back in London. Things moved fast. Camilla's team sent a formal notice to the Royal Collection Trust declaring her intent to return the disputed items to William and Harry. The language was polite, the tone neutral, but the meaning was crystal clear. She was giving them back. Still, it wasn't enough because this had never been about jewelry. It was about memory, and memory doesn't return with a form letter, not when it's been buried. The envelope was small, cream-colored, sealed with a wax crest Diana had used for personal letters. It arrived in a plain package delivered directly to Kensington Palace by an elderly nurse who had served Diana during her final years. She carried no fanfare, just a soft voice and a message. She asked me to give this to him. If the time ever came, William sat alone in his study, the evening sun flickering against the glass. The world outside was still inside. It felt like time had paused. He broke the seal with shaking hands, unfolded the letter slowly, and read the handwriting that had once filled birthday cards. Notes tucked into his lunchbox, and bedtime stories whispered after royal dinners. If I'm gone and you find yourself facing her, remember who you are. She hadn't written in anger. There were no accusations, only clarity. Deanna had known. Somehow she had seen this moment coming. The letter traced her fears of being erased, of Camilla slowly rewriting the narrative of her sons being separated from the truth. You are light, you are truth. You were never meant to carry my pain. William read those lines over and over until the words blurred through his tears. 4 years. He had tried to balance duty with memory, but now, holding her letter, it felt like Diana had reached through time to remind him that her story mattered and that it wasn't finished. He had her diary authenticated and submitted into the royal archive, but not buried away. A private digital copy was made for the family, and a legal claim was quietly filed to audit every item once tied to Diana's estate. It wasn't revenge, it was restoration legacy, properly honored. Soon after Camilla's public schedule vanished. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for future updates. See you in the next video.